Yo, what is going on, you guys? Bystial here, and today I want to be coming at you with a tier list for the Yu-Gi-Oh format that has just transpired upon us post the Magnificent Mavens set that just dropped this late last week. So we did just get our first YCS, I should say, with the Magnificent Maven support in the Shizu cards for the Tearlaments deck, and just really we get to see the overall outcome, it taking up 81% of the top 32 of the YCS. I think really just goes to show that I mean, without question, before we even get into it, just go ahead and put Tearlaments as the best deck of the format. And this is before I even get to the full explanation, guys. So, welcome. If you guys have not seen one of my tier lists before, it's perfectly understandable. I don't think I've made one of these in a very long time, but I thought I'd go ahead and throw my hat in the ring. Why not? Seems like a lot of fun. I have very little experience with Tier Maker overall, but I think it's pretty cool. I think it's very nice visual, so let's go ahead and kick it off and see how this goes from here. So if you guys do enjoy these types of videos, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe down below, and let's get right into it. So the first deck we're going to be covering today, guys, let's not beat around the bush, let's go ahead and put it here. Tearlaments is the best deck of the current format. Whether it is a tier 0 deck is still yet to be seen. I personally believe that it was the first YCS in Pasadena. It was one day after the release of the sets. I do not believe that we have found fully how the deck will function here in the TCG. What counters that we may have that the OCG might not have, so it is something that is yet to be seen. I believe that we have the formula now for Floowandereeze, we have the formula now for Sprite, so whether it's going to be a tier 0 format, I think it's yet to be seen. I don't think we should overreact off of just one YCS, so we're definitely going to see this upcoming week. If you guys want to go ahead and definitely check that out as well, just go ahead and see a little bit more of what actually will transpire. I actually do not know if that YCS is going to get a live stream, but if it is, I highly recommend watching it. If it is, I will definitely be watching it as well. So we're gonna put a Shizu Tearlaments up here. Essentially, it is such a strong deck. I mean, I'm playtesting with it right now just so I can go ahead and get a feel for the deck, understand it. I'm still not sure if I'm gonna go with Sprite or Tearlaments for this format. But I'm heavily leaning towards Tearlaments. One Rhino Heart milled me 13 cards in my deck, and that's before I even got halfway through my combo. I mean, the deck just does so much on its own. It has so much of a higher ceiling than before. Just being able to mill even more cards that then mill even more cards, and then you have graveyard interruption as well naturally in the deck, and then also have natural hand traps that play very well with what the deck does in Herald of Orange Light. And then you can also play cards like Diviner of the Herald, play cards like Bear on the Floor. It just makes this deck that much better, and honestly, I just don't see this deck really losing. The only way that I could see Tearlaments losing is if you build specifically a counter Tearlaments deck, which is going to be Bystial cards, DD Crow, Ghost Bell, Skullmeister, and D-Shifter on your main deck, which means you're pretty much not going to have much of a deck left. But overall, I think Tearlaments is by far going to be the best deck of the format. Alright, so we have tackled the #1 best deck of the current format. Now let's go ahead and tackle one of the better decks of the previous format in the Runic, which I will actually go ahead and put in tier 2. This goes for the Runic Sprite deck, actually. So with the Runic Sprite deck, the biggest issue with it is that it relies very heavily on being able to refill your hand with resources with those 3 runic spells that you are going to be targeting after activation. Put it back into your deck and then draw 3 more cards. It refills your hand and means you're always going to have some type of interruption on your opponent's turn, which is absolutely fantastic. Even just pure Runic as well, not necessarily just the Sprite Runic version, but I am putting Sprite Runic at tier 2. And the main issue with this is that Tearlaments right now has such insane graveyard interaction, and with higher representation, if you're going to be going to competitive event, I would actually not even consider taking a Runic based deck at all. I'm actually very close to putting it on Rogue, but in the event that you're not facing a Tearlaments based deck, you do have a much better matchup in that instance. But I just believe currently, Runic Sprite, while it was probably the best deck of the previous format, the second that Shizu cards dropped, it plummeted down to tier 2 standing, at least in my opinion, for the upcoming future. Next on our list, guys, we have sprites. Go ahead and tackle some sprites, some more meta contenders. So pure sprite, I'm talking about pure sprite, is actually going to be definitely a tier 1 deck. This goes for any deck that can match up pretty well against the current best deck, which would be Shizu Tearlaments. I think sprite has a fantastic matchup. I do not know that if going for the totally awesome play is going to be the best route moving forward, just because if you are going to be playing sprite, like I said before, you are going to want to kind of tailor-made it, mold it in a way that counters issues with Tearlaments. So maybe main decking D-Shifter is something that sprite players are going to have to gravitate to. I think it's yet to be seen exactly what we are going to have to do in order to make sure that we are picking up these wins. But if that's the case, then I don't think the totally awesome play is going to be the best way. I think just relying, similar to how Vincent was doing in the YCS livestream. If you guys have not checked those out, definitely check them out. They're on the channel for the top 8 and top 4 match. He was relying a lot more on the red negate and carrot negate instead of having, you know, totally awesome, things like that. He still main decked the Toad, which is something that, like I said, I'm not sure if something that we're going to be going for, or if we're just going to rely on those, maybe some IP Masquerena plays, things like that. But I think it's yet to be discovered exactly what is the winning formula for Sprite. If the deck list that Vincent took is going to be the best deck moving forward, at least for Sprite. But I think Sprite definitely has a huge adaptability for whatever format you're playing it, and I think Sprite has a lot of potential here in this upcoming format, especially with a card like Mannequin Cat being as we played is absolutely insane, and I think that Sprite is still definitely a tier 1 deck. Next up, guys, we have Eldlich. So Eldlich is a deck that we have actually not covered in the channel in a while. I'm actually going to go ahead and put it in Rogue with Eldlich. Eldlich has always been one of those decks that kind of sticks around a tier list, tier 2 potential, but just with the amount of back row hate that is in the current format, not just back row hate, but the fact that the graveyard manipulation, the amount of Bystial cards being played right now, the DD Crows, anything that activates in the graveyard is getting negated, and with Eldlich being a very, very heavy back row and graveyard reliant deck, I just don't see it doing very well. Also, if you're going to be sending cards to the graveyard via card effect against Shizu Tearlament, good luck with that, buddy. You're just giving your opponent a lot more advantage that way. So I do not think that Eldlich is going to be doing good anytime soon. The second we're going to be covering today, guys, is going to be Heroes. So Heroes is actually a pretty funny archetype. Funny in the sense of it actually has a pretty decent matchup against a Shizu Tearlament. So I'm going to go ahead and put it at tier 2. Which is interesting, because the more I was thinking about it, you know, after YCS Pasadena, things like that, again, we're trying to search for decks that hit the graveyard, and what does Hero have? They have Dark Law. So as long as you're able to as long as you're able to just summon out a Dark Law, it doesn't matter how you do it. As long as this Dark Law is on the field, you pretty much win straight up against Tearlament, which is really, really funny to think about, really. The only issue is if you're going second, you will lose, so it's very dice roll dependent. It's the only reason why I'm putting in tier 2. But Dark Law is a very scary card for Tearlament to go up against. I don't think there's very many cards that you can go ahead and go into while still being able to beat over the Dark Law, you know, so that's something that's definitely worth considering or taking into consideration. But I think Heroes actually has a much better fighting chance in this format than it did in previous formats, strictly because of the current best deck of the format being the way that it currently plays. So that's really interesting to think about. Next up on our list, guys, we have Sky Striker, which actually got some really, really great support through Linkage. We got Hamp. We have that really trash card, I think it's called Ailero. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. That card was awful, but it did get some fantastic support through Linkage. Now, is it enough to put in tier 1 or best deck category? It is not. It is definitely a rogue tier deck at this point, guys. So the issue with Sky Striker is that, of course, it is very reliant on Mystic Mine. It is very reliant on the graveyard being able to go ahead and shuffle back your not shuffle back, be able to add your engage, your linkage from your graveyard back to your hand with Kagari. And I just think the interruption it currently has, it's just not nearly enough of what it needs in order to be able to compete in the current format the way it is. Just with the amount of representation that Shizu tier is gonna, and this is basically what it's come down to. The entire tier list is coming down to, can it compete even a little bit against Shizu Tearlament? And I do not see Skytracker having the slightest bit of luck. The only thing that it would have on Ishizu tier is if it happens to draw Mystic Mine going second and just slap it down. But even then, Ishizu tier, they know what they had to deal with, and they already play the outs for it. So do not think this is going to be doing very well. Also, that leads me on to my next topic, Mystic Mine. So Mystic Mine, everyone was calling for it to get banned. I called for it to get banned. Everyone's surprised this card's not banned. Is this still a top tier card? I actually don't think so. I think that this would go in the category. So the issue with Mystic Mine, whether it's burn or deck out, whatever you might want to call it, is that again it's very reliant on this one card. Which it's fine. I mean, it's won YCSs before, it's won regionals before, it's performed very well before in doing so. Issue with that is that a lot of the top tier decks are playing in deck outs to this card already. And that's not even to stop Mystic Mine per se. I mean, there's a lot of there's Ishizu Tearlament decks that actually main deck Mystic Mine. It doesn't say that it is a bad card, because we're not talking about the card itself, we're talking about the deck. A Mystic Mine burn or deck out deck, whatever you want to call it, I just do not see it having the juice or the firepower to be able to stand up to the current format as it is. I think this is better in a slower format, Sword Soul format, you know, things like that. But in the way it is with Sprite and Shizu Tearlament being the top two decks of the format, being very fast-paced decks, I do not see Mystic Mine really keeping up with that at all. Next, guys, we have the Dragon Link deck. So Dragon Link is a deck that we all thought was dead. Then you know, some cards came off the ban list, and it came back, and some cards hit the ban list, and they went away again, and the Bystial cards came back, and now it's back again. So where do we put the Dragon Link deck? We're actually going to put it at a tier 2 deck. It has a much higher ceiling, being that they're dragons, they work well with the graveyard, you know, they're quick effect special summons. It adds a lot more consistency to a deck that really just needed something to get it off the ground, but I do not believe it's going to be enough to propel Dragon Link into a higher tier deck. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and put this in Rogue. Let's just be honest here. I think Dragon Link's gonna be a Rogue deck. I think anyone who knows how to pilot the deck, and I think you know what? I think Kali Effects tier list works a little bit better, where it takes a really good pilot to be able to manage this in a way that you can actually compete. Is it gonna win any YCS regional? I really doubt it. Will it top? Potentially at the regional level. I was gonna go ahead and put it in Rogue for right now, because I just don't think people will see it coming if you are playing it. But I think this deck has been out for so long, I think people understand, duelists understand how to go ahead and maneuver around this deck. And knowing already how the Bystial cards work, just go ahead and go around that as well. Next that we're going to be touching on is going to be Drytron. So Drytron, how the mighty have fallen, Drytron. So Drytron was the best deck of the format about a year ago to this day, but unfortunately with ban list, actually it is actually probably at full power right now, but it's just been power crept to hell. So honestly, this Drytron deck is going to be a Rogue tier matchup at this point. Just again, the overall reliance on the graveyard and the amount of hand traps being played right now, and just they're all light monsters, and Bystials destroy light monsters. I just don't see a way that Drytron could really compete in the current format, just the way it is. Just a lot of the main deck cards right now are so much stronger than they were back when Drytron was the best deck of the format. Even with Ben 10 at 3, it doesn't matter. I do not see Drytron doing nearly as well as it once did. Unfortunately, it is a really cool deck. My boy Ford, he played the deck for a while. I actually really like the way the deck plays. I think it's really cool and interesting, but is it going to be doing very well anytime in the near future? I don't think so. It's still better than the category, so take that for what you will. Next we're going to touch on is Floowandereeze. Let's not beat around the bush, guys. Floowandereeze is a tier 1 deck. Just the amount of interruptions that it has, being able to play on your opponent's turn, being able to tribute your opponent's monsters. You don't care. You don't need a special summon. You summon the barrier statue and you're fine. This deck has so much firepower. Look, say what you want, hate the deck if you want, but it wins. It wins. It has a great matchup against Ishizu's Tearlament. It has a great matchup against any graveyard reliant deck. It does not need his graveyard whatsoever. All their cards get banished essentially. So I just think it has a fantastic matchup. And tier 1 essentially are going to the only 2 decks, not Ishizu Tearlament, that were able to top in the YCS Pasadena. So I think it's very, very rightfully fitting. Now let's talk about the ugly stepsister or Exosister of the Floowandereeze. We have the Exosisters, which is clearly going to go in a tier 2 deck. What is the issue with Exosister? It has some cool interruptions, don't get me wrong. Is it a deck that I fear? No, it is not a deck that I necessarily fear. Yes, it can main deck the outs to Ishizu Tearlament. It can main deck the D-Shifter. It messes with the graveyard, has a lot of graveyard manipulation. But is it strong? I do not think it is nearly as strong as Floowandereeze. I think Floowandereeze has a lot more control aspect to it, where it actually has more blanket effects. For example, M-Pen. Exosister is just missing that one extra factor. Both can manipulate the graveyard. I think Floowandereeze does it, of course, a little bit better, just being able to naturally fall very well into playing cards like Necro Valley or playing cards like, of course, D-Shifter. Whereas Exosisters, it really relies on your opponent making that move first, which then can backfire as well. So that's why I think that's why I think Exosister is going to be a tier 2 deck, guys. I do not see it doing much better than that, so it's definitely going to go with the heroes in the Runic tier as well. Next, we're going to put Dinos. Dinos is 100% going in the A category, guys. This deck has not been good for a while. If Miscellaneous Orders comes back to 3, I don't even know. I don't think it is at 3. Is it at a 3? It doesn't matter. I mean, Dinosaurs is just not doing anything right now, guys. It's sad for me to say because it was one of my first actual competitive decks that I ever played. I do not see it doing very well. Lagia, Dolka, you only get 1 per turn with just the decks that are currently in the format, and just the amount of interruptions that they can go ahead and go through. I just don't see Dinos doing much at all like that, guys. So let's go ahead and just slow down on the hype for the Dinos. Now here's an interesting one. I have Sword Soul. Sword Soul. Where would this go? Honestly, at the local level, it is doing extremely well. At least since here in San Antonio, it's still representing, it's still doing well. I'm actually gonna put this at a tier 2 deck. I don't think it's rogue. It's definitely not it's definitely not tier 1. But I think that this can definitely still compete quite well. Yeah, it uses a little bit of the graveyard, so you know, Ishizu Tearlament, Floowandereeze can't hurt it. But it's definitely not the end of the world. Nobody is playing Token Collector anymore, so you're free to go and go by your plays. There's a going second Sword Soul deck that actually does very, very well. At least it did before the Ishizu cards came out. I haven't tested it after or seen it after, but I think that going first or second, I think that Sword Soul has quite the advantage. Especially if you're trying to make the initial Baron before you go into anything. Not many people are playing Nibiru at this point. It's kind of pointless, really. I see this deck doing quite well, potentially getting a little bit more representation at like YCSs, things like that. Only issue with it is that everyone knows what Sword Soul does and how it plays, whereas Ishizu Tearlament's a lot more newer, it's more fun, so it's gonna get naturally a lot more representation. Also, it's just a blowout freaking deck. It's actually insane. But I think Sword Soul has the potential to potentially be a tier 1 deck. It just depends on the pilot and depends on the luck as well, whether you want to build it going first or going second. It's really yet to be seen how this deck is going to adapt for the format. Next up on our list, guys, we have the Bystial archetype. Bystial as a whole is going to be a tier 2 deck, a pure Bystial. There's really not much going on for the deck right now, and nothing that's really going to put this deck over the edge. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and put it at rogue. Let's be real. Pure Bystial is a rogue deck. Bystial is an engine, I should say, is fantastic. It's one of the best engines we've received since the adventure package engine, and that's a factual statement. Okay, that's not an opinion. That's a factual statement. As an engine, it is great. As a pure archetype, it leaves a lot to be desired. Again, being very reliant on your opponent, having cards in the graveyard, and normally when you're relying on your opponent doing something, is same thing with Exosisters. It just a lot of things can really just go negatively in your favor. So I would definitely not recommend this deck. Next up, guys, we have the Math Mechs, which are going straight into the rogue category. No, they cannot compete anymore. Don't lie to me. They are so reliant on drawing the, I think it's called the circular, that is just absolutely insane. I mean, yeah, it could compete before, but again, the decks, the formats just evolved. So, and then, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put Marincess right here as well. Similar struggles, I want to say, with these two. The format's just too fast for them. There's no way they can keep up in the current format the way it is. So that's currently where they're staying. Next up on our list, we have Bystial Branded, or just Branded in general. I think it's going to be a tier 2 deck. With the popularity of Ash, Blossom, Joy Springs really dropping here with this format, just being a lot more reliant on hand traps that hit the graveyard. I think with Ash Blossom really just, again, decreasing in popularity, I think this deck's got a huge boost. Being able to have Branded Fusion just go off clean, I think that goes huge for the deck overall. I think the Bystial cards do a lot for the deck as well as far as pushing it forward. I think it's going to be a tier 2 deck for right now. I do not see it beating out the Floowandereeze or the Sprite at the current form, at the current way it is. But I do see it having a lot of potential here in the next few weeks. Potentially, we might be able to see it either top a regional, or definitely top a regional. But I do not see it topping a YCS. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at the tier 2 status, but it can definitely compete with the rest of them. These three are just so powerful. By the way, I'm pretty much done with the best deck in tier 1. Tier 1 for right now. Next we have Conclave Control with the Crystal Beast cards. This is definitely going in the rogue category. Yeah, you know what? It's won some locals, done well as some regionals here and there, but again, with the current format the way it is, I do not see Crystal Beast doing anything. Whether you want to play the original version or the Conclave Control version, there's just not enough there in order to compete with the other decks. Next up, guys, we have Draco Slayers. I think I chose the wrong icon, but it is what it is. So Draco Slayers, where will it fall on the list? I'm actually going to put Pendulum in the category, guys. The issue with Pendulum is that going second, they're absolutely terrible. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're going first with Draco Slayers right now, you can make a very unbreakable boards, and it can actually do quite a bit should you go uninterrupted. Also, you need to make sure you're going first, or else you are not going to have a fun time playing this deck. It's really what it's missing. Pendulums are missing a juice card. They need Electromite back so that they can be able to actually do something with the overall deck. Not just decks overall. Pendulum as an archetype, not as a summoning mechanic, is unfortunately dead at the moment. I do not see any Pendulum deck doing very well at all. Yeah, we saw a few feature matches, whatever, in the previous few YCSs here or there, but I mean, the representation is way down. I mean, like I said, the deck going second is absolute trash, and it can't do anything. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave it right now in the category. If you disagree, let me know in the comment section down below, and we will duel it out. Next one I want to put on here is gonna be Dino, what's this called? Dino Morphia. I was gonna call it Dino Mist. No, it's Dino Morphia, and this is 100% going in the category. This deck is that doo-doo garbage in a format where time rules rule, and you're playing a deck that keeps continually halving all your attack points and halving your life you're halving your life points constantly. There's just no room for success there. So let's go ahead and go in the A category. You get a little bit of burn damage and you're done. Yeah, it's just not gonna be a fun time for that at all. Next we have the Burning Abyss. Burning Abyss, I want to go ahead. I really want to put it in a tier 2 deck, but realistically it is a rogue deck. It has a high ceiling, but it's very glass cannony. I do not trust it enough to put in the tier 2 category, but it is still something that's definitely there. Next deck we're going to touch on is ABC. ABC has seen some fun representation. It has seen a lot of hype behind it, but unfortunately this is going in the category. It doesn't matter if you want to go ahead and put some Therions in there, do whatever you want. This deck is not going to be as successful. We have one dude who had a 10-0 record with the deck. Good job to him. I'm sure he drew fantastic Union Carrier every time. He's probably a lot more skilled than myself. However, there are not that many of people like him out there who are really that committed to ABC. So it's definitely going to go in the A category. I do not see it doing very well. It's just so field spell reliant. If you don't draw the field spell, you pretty much might as well just give your opponent the game. Going second, it is not going to outperform Floowandereeze, Sprites, Runics, Heroes. Sword Soul is not even going to put up a fight against Eldlich, Sky Striker. I mean, come on. Every single one of these decks I would choose 100%, and obviously by the tier list over the ABC. I just don't see it doing very well at all, really. And it's probably a little bit harsh. It's probably a little bit harsher than I want it to be, but you know, it is what it is. Madolche is a cute little rogue deck. Don't get me wrong. If you underestimate Madolche, they will creep up on you and they will slap you silly. But it is definitely going to be a rogue deck for right now, unfortunately. And also, it very much needs some reprints, Konami. So let's go ahead and get on those reprints. And one last one that I'm going to go ahead and put on here, guys, is let's go ahead and do a few more. And they're all going to go in the A category. We have the Salamangreat, we have Altergeist, and we have Prank Kid, just for fun. And let's go ahead and put in the no. I mean, we know Invoked is A. I'm gonna go ahead and put in the. So I know there's no explanation for these. I don't think one is necessary. Dogmatica is Dogmatica Pure, Dogmatica Spellbook, Dogmatica whatever you want is not what it is. Prank Kid is here just for the lulz. Multifaker, Altergeist, again, it's really successful in slower formats. This is just not the format for it. And I mean, Salamangreat does nothing, and that scares me. I mean, I've never really understood why the deck was so. I mean, yeah, it's consistent. It was, I should say, but right now it is beyond power creep. So that's actually going to be it for the tier list, guys. I think I touched on quite a bit of decks. If you want to know where Adagnister lies, it is going to be right over here in the rogue category as well, with the other like Cybers type decks as well. So those are my current thoughts on the most popular, I want to say, archetypes in the current format. Personally, I love DDD. DDD is definitely in the eh category as well. It is just not a good deck right now, guys. Don't even try to play it if you guys were wondering. So it's going to be it for the tier list, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Did I disrespect your favorite deck? Let me know in the comment section down below. We can go ahead and hash it out or duel it out, whichever one you guys want. But if you guys did enjoy, go ahead and leave a like down below, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And good luck to everyone in this upcoming YCS.